it is a bit like a homecoming, and to those on the call who maybe don't have the sense of homecoming, if you showed up for something else, I'm afraid this is a bit of a homecoming. And I want to let it be that, you know. Donna and Shirley on this call. On my desk, I've got the first edition and the first print of 9 Conversations in Leadership with your names on the cover, and the inscriptions and the messages that you wrote. Donna, the one I want to refer to is small talk leads to big things, which is what you wrote a long time ago in the cover of 9C edition 1. We've got PT edition 1, the beautiful packaged edition with the fold-out cover. It was amazing, you know. You guys have been, we've been together for a long road. There's people from the Western Cape government on the call, long-time 9C customers. Symphonia, obviously, Louise, who treated me a bit like a rugby ball, and drop kicked us into the academic stuff. You're the Andre Pollard, and off we went. You know, lifelong facilitator communities, members who've been facilitators for such a long time. Yeah, so this is a bit of a homecoming, and what I want to do today is just enjoy that. I need to acknowledge that I'm beginning again. I've spent 7 years out of WorldsView Academy. That's you know, that's a reasonably long time, and we'll chat about that in a minute. So the structure of these calls, we're going to stick to the structure of these calls, which normally is a kind of an opening provocation, and then you're all thrown off into some rooms to really to get to know each other a little and maybe think about the topic. Then when you come back, I'll give you a sense of what I'm seeing. I've been back in WorldsView for a month. Today is the 1st of November, and I came back on the 2nd of October. So what do I see? And then you'll go back into breakouts to talk about, well, what do you want to tell me? And what do you want to tell us? And then what do you learn from that yourselves in terms of the work that you're doing? It's a little nerve-wracking because I'm going to open our kimono somewhat in terms of the good and the bad and the ugly in what I'm seeing. And that's dangerous when you've got customers and partners on the call, but I'm okay with that. You know, in the Purposeful Teams edition 1, some of the acknowledgements were to the very brave first facilitators and first customers who tried the program and gave us feedback, and that really helped us produce something that, to this day, 9 Conversations and Purposeful Teams continue to be used in their original form globally. Liesel's currently running 9C, hey, Liesel? Yep. For a very large chicken producing firm in South Africa. Okay, so I love you all. Thank you for coming. The provocation is this. You have an issue. I have an issue. I have a bunch of issues as I come back into WorldsView. And you delegate and you contract out for a solution, or you start working on it yourself. You know, I'm now 58 years old, and I've realized that months later, years later, after much busyness, the issue's still there. You know, we run interventions, we do things, and then we look back. And the metaphor for me is our kitchen floor at home here. It gets grease stains in the wood. And then if you take a wet mop and you attack that wooden floor, as the wood gets wet, the grease stains look like they're gone. So you're busy and you're rubbing that water all over the grease stains. and then you walk away and you let it dry, and they're still there, you know. So you've been really busy and worked really hard, but it hasn't really changed anything. How is it that in our rush to get something done, we create busyness and not results? Well, that's something for you to talk about, and you can go off and meet each other in breakout rooms. And we're not going to debrief it straight away. I just wanted you to use that thinking. Then I'll give you our story, and then you're back into breakouts to start really applying it in any way that you wish. So thank you for listening to the opening monologue. And Liesel's going to throw you off into breakout rooms. I hope you find some wonderful people to talk to. I hope that was amazing. I got to join one of the rooms for a while, and it was amazing for me. I'm going to share the story of what I'm seeing in WorldsView. Somebody give me a bit of a thumbs up if you can see that.
Can see it.
All right, so the story starts with my absence. 7 is a funny number. It's a 7-year absence. That's with the backdrop of 34 years of very personal struggles with organizational performance. Those of you who know me know that I've been involved in quite a few organizations as a shareholder or founder or consultant or partner or something in that journey. But my precious was WorldsView Academy. Was partner there from 93 to 2016 before taking the 7-year break. That 7-year break was 6 years to exit a few other companies. And then the 7th year was what I said to my friends and family was that I felt like a dog walking in circles looking for a place to lie down. But in hindsight, it was probably more than that. Probably was a time to regroup a little. And then Liesel convinced me to come back. Didn't take much convincing to return to my precious. I did feel a bit like Gollum grabbing my ring. So what did I see? The story that keeps sticking in my head, or the metaphor, is good old wine in good old bottles for good old thirst. Some of the headline stuff is that these programs are 10 years or more. 9 Conversations was conceived in 2004. 9 Conversations in Leadership, and it's still running and still delighting people. So old wine is good wine. There's something in there. When Donna and I sat under a tree at Wits Business School in the early 2000s, the thing we were mostly talking about is, why did we have to come to Wits Business School and pay a great deal of money to learn what we're learning about leadership? And we played with this idea, as Donna said, small talk leads to big things. Of how would you democratize that? And the main point there is that there's not a lot that is new in the theory. I'm not convinced that we need new wine, in other words. I think that leadership has been around for a long time. Team issues have been around for a long time. Issues of organizational strategy and direction, organizational structure, performance. It's very difficult to find new wine. We're often recombining things. But new bottles are needed. Hybrid learning and teaching, COVID brought us forward. Technology, as ever, is shifting the way people learn and the way we teach. And there is a view that says a lot of organizational life is learning. If organizations are an information processing engine, then organizations are always learning. But WorldsView definitely needs new bottles. So I think I wrote about it in a blog or a LinkedIn post recently, that it's as if we're drinking good wine, but something about the bottle means that a lot of the wine spills to the floor. So in a lot of what we're trying to do with organizations, it doesn't matter how good that content is, there's just a massive amount of waste. And so we don't quite get the result that we hoped for. So on the 10-year-old programs, I just wonder whether the grease stain is ROI. Do the clients get enough of a return, and how do we work on that? Do we have the right programs? Do we have the right program strategy? Obviously, on the hybrid learning and teaching, we need to update our learning design and bring in the technology. Love to find a way to do that, though, that's not me too, that we really challenge the pedagogy and think again. I think when Shirley Noble joined the team in the early 2000s and showed us how to use dialogue and conversation as the main tool of change. So what really 9 Conversations did was convene people around these leadership conversations, and then with some fairly, strong facilitation guidelines, guide people through those conversations. And that knowledge, I think, was fairly revolutionary for what we were doing at the time in the early 2000s, and still is effective. It's incredibly effective. Donna and Shirley and Louise were talking in one of the breakaways now about, still it's at the basics of convening people and having these conversations. But I believe that there's something more. There's something else in contemporary learning design that maybe we can add to that. But money's too tight to mention. I've come back to a WorldsView that is really struggling financially, and we remember you, COVID. Liesel and the team have done an incredible job of keeping the doors open, but that was fighting through COVID, through a failed merger, and somehow we've got to get the return on investment right for WorldsView, if we're going to create a next generation of learning design and maybe flesh out some of the programs. How do we get the return on that? It's legendary that we spent millions on 9C, PT, getting the academic qualification registered, getting that kind of higher education thing up. And really, I think just when the harvesting should have been happening and getting that return, I think COVID wiped out a lot of that momentum. And then there's this funny thing happening in the customer space. Seems to me that customer attention spans are getting shorter. I don't know whether this is a permanent thing or just right now, but busy. People are just finding it so hard to carve time out. And we don't seem to be able to eliminate it. There's great programs out there and old wisdom around how to focus, how to pick your battles, and yet busyness doesn't seem to be diminishing, it's increasing. So good old wine in good old bottles for good old thirst. What do? I ran a Eisenhower or urgent important matrix as part of the provocation. I mean, this is not a complete list, but it is still fair disclosure. What we're getting clients phoning us still saying, we need a quick fix. And well, I think they have a sense of urgency, but I'm not sure that quick fixes are important. This pursuit of new wine, always trying to find a new content, a new secret sauce. After after 38 years of doing this, I'm not sure that there is that much new wine. So I'm not convinced that it's either urgent or important to find new first principles. I'm not. I think Louise is challenging me a little on that, but I'm curious to hear what she says. And then on the important side, the partner networks. One of the things that WorldsView did beautifully was develop this global partner network. I mean, we had accredited facilitators, I think, on every continent for 9C and PT, and some of those facilitators are still part of our network today. But I don't think that's primary. I think we're going to have to first attend to the stuff in the orange block and then revitalize the partner network. So we need new bottles. I think that's important. Digital transformation of all the programs, figure out what AI does in this space or not, get an LMS, refresh the learning design, rethink accessibility. Some of our content is not the most accessible for any learners that have any sorts of challenges. And then simplify the program administration just to reduce cost. We need to get more customers, clearly, so something in marketing has to happen, but we've got to figure out how to fund that, and then that funding in turn helps us reinvest in the programs. So one of the things I know for sure is that the WorldsView brand is soaking in brilliance. I mean, the people on this call between you, I think, can solve and have solved massive challenges in organizations. But for WorldsView, how do we access that without slavery? And I'm using the word very consciously. We can't ask for volunteers to give their time and then because it just, we all hate that when we're asked to do something while you may be struggling to pay school fees to give your IP away. So we need a bit of a strategy refresh. So these are the things that I'm seeing at WorldsView. They may resonate with you in your own organizations. They may not. What I would like to invite you to do is to go back into your breakout groups now and see where this conversation takes you. What did you hear? What are your thoughts? What do you want to share? We'll leave you in for more or less the same amount of time, 12 to 15 minutes. But let's see, do you have your own cases from your own organizations that might spark a conversation? And then we'll pull you back for a bit of a debrief from those groups after you've had a chance to discuss it. Thanks for listening to at least our current case to get the next part of this call going. Welcome back, everybody. I managed to sit in a bit on room 1. But how many rooms were there, Liesl, in the end?
I think 5 on this round. Yeah, 5.
All right. So whoever was in room 5, would you kick us off?
That's Peter and Richard and Safir.
So what did you guys, what happened in your room? What did you notice?
Okay. Well, we didn't finish the talk, of course, but Peter was sharing a quite interesting experience and the challenges that they are facing in order to achieve their goals or their vision in improving lives or dignity through the services that they provide. And actually we didn't have the time to explore that more, but we started getting into understanding what's the challenges, and the word that Peter have highlighted, it's about busyness. The challenge of, busyness, or people, all the people, they are too busy to fix or to enhance or to make changes.
Thank you, old friend Sophia from Algeria. Good to see you. Peter, do you want to add anything to that? Is there, are there any solutions in your mind?
Lots of solutions, few results at this time, but I think we're moving in the right direction. What I was trying to say is the one thing in the grid that you put up, Craig, is the word busyness that you identified in the context of your business, and we're experiencing that as well. And I think there are two issues around that. The one is whether that busyness is productive busyness. And it's almost something that I've observed since COVID hit, that it's almost sometimes as if the business is an excuse. And that's a bit of a harsh observation, and that probably needs to be explored further, because the causality behind that would be interesting. But the other issue around business, I now forget. That's also a COVID result.
Long COVID.
The office, the oxygen wagon doesn't come by as often as it used to.
Well, let's go to room 4.
Sorry.
We'll come back to you, Sophia. Let's hear from room 4 and then open it up after that. Who was in room 4, Liesel, or who wants to speak for room 4?
It was Lawrence, Mbali, Michael, and Janine.
Michael's a great debriefer.
I think I'll take the bait as it hangs there invitingly. There was some discussion about consultants that are often brought in, and if they don't produce what the customer thinks they should produce in the time they should, then they kind of start consultant hopping. So that was one of the sort of topics. Another thing that was raised was that, and I've heard this raised, I don't think I'm a mainstream OD person, but I have an interest, but I've heard this raised so many times, is that there's not enough time to even diagnose and figure out what to do as a consultant now, what to do, never mind do it. And I guess that sort of fits under the busyness, the non-productive busyness bucket, if you like. Get in, do, tick a box, let's move on. And you haven't even sort of figured out what the issue is, never mind trying to solve it. So that was discussed a bit. And then we had a bit of a conversation on change management, but a slightly different, and that's a challenge that the company I'm with is having, and that's change management in our customers for the adoption and or collaboration with robots. I work for a robotics company. And this is quite a thing that I see on the horizon, that this company, in particular, the sort of customer success people, are going to have to take very seriously, because there's certain perceptions out there as regards robots, and one's going to have to deal with those. And those were, I think, I don't know if anyone else in the group wants to jump in. Those are the sort of 3 main things, my takeaways from the discussion.
Robots, busyness, consultant hopping. The consultant hopping also feels like that quick fix thing to me, where everybody's looking for some sort of miraculous quick fix, or shopping for an OD intervention off the shelf, context free, just drop something in and make it work. Was there anybody else in Michael's group that wanted to add to that?
No, I just want to also clarify in terms of diagnosis what the discussion was about there. It's a part of what you just mentioned now, Craig, that people are looking for a quick fix intervention. So what we were talking about is that a client calls in a consultant and already they think they know what's wrong. They think they know what they're solving. And that's what you're supposed to deliver because this is what they're asking for. So not enough time or effort is spent on actually diagnosing what is the actual issue that we're trying to fix. And if that is not done properly, as it is the basics in OD to first get the correct diagnosis, then the intervention won't help much if we don't really know what the actual issue is. So I think Lawrence also mentioned that consultants tend to fall onto this trap and just want to satisfy the client. Say, okay, you think you have a team issue? Okay, I'll solve a team issue and move along, do what they want. So that was the discussion.
It's an interesting dilemma as a detour in Bali. In the year between leaving the other businesses and now, I did a bit of consulting work. And in two of the cases, I worked with the CEOs who'd given me issues that they wanted me to work on, and fairly quickly, within sort of 3 to 4 weeks, come back to them and said, that's not it. It's this. And this was usually some behavior of the CEO, unfortunately. In both of those cases it was. And both of those assignments were then terminated. Not necessarily in an ugly way, but just that the underlying issues were not things that the CEOs were willing or able to take on. So, yeah, I wondered to what extent that just contributes to busyness, though, because we become part of the problem then. If we agree to just intervene, knowing or believing that it's very unlikely to solve the underlying issue, we still get paid, people still have a good time. And as Liesl reminded me a couple of times, there is some benefit because we manage to improve health in some way through our interventions. People do learn to engage and learn to discuss and sometimes even learn to take the CEO on. So do you do nothing, or do you accept what's put in front of you and then try and work out from there? It's, I think, interesting. Group, who's the next group? 2.
Room 3, room 2 didn't exist in the second round. Room 3 had Linda and Nicole, and there was a third person, but I'm not sure who that was.
Well, I'd
There's
love to
Johan.
hear. Yeah.
Oh, Johan.
So I see we're out of time, I think.
Mm-mm.
Not
But
yet.
we-
Okay.
We scheduled
We're
until
going till
10:30.
10:30. We should be
Oh,
going.
okay.
till 10:30.
Oh,
You
yes,
might
we
be
are.
out of
Okay,
time,
great.
Linda.
Great,
You
just
might be
doing
out.
No,
an
I'm
OD
not.
talk, and I just wanted to see.
So,
With the OD cafe conversation, I just wanted to see how he does it.
Brett, your mic's not muted, my beloved birthday brother. For those
Guys,
of you
I'm
who
hell of
know
a
Brett.
sorry. I just came back from gym. I apologize. I'm supposed to have been muted and sensible, and I'm just an idiot. So apologies.
For
Yeah.
those of you who don't know, that is A, my brother, B, an ex-CEO of WorldsView, and C, it's his birthday. Happy birthday.
happy
And
birthday,
D,
Brett.
he's unmuted. Apologies.
Linda's just about to debrief.
Yeah. So, a pity Johan's had to leave. But yeah, there's something our group discussed that we actually want to challenge you on a little bit, Craig, and that is the notion that you can't ask people to volunteer. I can't remember exactly how you articulated it, but it was around your comments on, getting people involved, but not but without implementing slavery kind of thing, I think was your comment. And the conversation in our group was actually there are more people who are more willing to be generous than you might think. And yes, of course, we understand that people who are working for themselves, must preserve their IP to some extent in order to earn a living and obviously sustain and keep their businesses profitable. But there are a lot of people who are incredibly willing to share and can be called on and should be called on. And so, yeah, we just wanted to challenge you on that. And then we also spoke a little bit about impact and the busyness and how people are wanting a quick fix. And some consultants are willing to try and give them that because it obviously generates some income. But what's often not clear, and I don't think the consultants impress this sufficiently upon their clients, is how they actually should be measuring impact. What does impact look like? And to bear in mind that impact may only be visible a year or 2 years down the line. And to stand fast and stick to the stay on the course. OD, as we know, is a very long line and takes multiple interventions to get where you need to be. So those were just some of the discussions. I don't know if maybe one of my colleague wants to drop in since Johan's left. If maybe Nicole, you want to add to that? Is Nicole still here?
No,
Yes.
Linda, pretty aligned with what you said. And I mean, a lot of duplication from the other groups where we've spoken about the fix, bringing the consultant in as a catalyst, and then kind of asking them to fix what's not the problem. So, yeah.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you as ever, Linda. You always cut right to the chase, you know. So I'll be having coffee with you when I'm next in the Cape.
Yes, please.
Group 1. I think it's the Shirley and Donna show. I think both of you should get a bit of airtime on this one.
Shirley, I stand on the shoulders of giants. You first.
Oh my goodness, Donna. So Craig, we talked a little bit about you made some interesting comments, and the one thing that bothers me is, you asked what is our game, and when I go in for any kind of OD intervention, my first question is, what is your game? Where do you want to go? What is the sandbox you want to be playing in? So I think that's for me is a fundamental question. The other thing is, we talked about, you were mentioning about how to get ROI, and really understanding the contemporary changes in learning design since COVID. The world has changed dramatically. People's needs have not necessarily changed. They still want to learn, but there's this kind of frantic feeling about the world now, especially with companies insisting on hybrid work. You sort of trying to split your time between home and office. So really trying to figure out, how do you deliver learning interventions, if that's your game, in a way that fits the needs of, instant learning. Let me access what I need to know right now, and it might be my pre-work for the conversation that's coming up, but also making sure that you build in the humanity of talking to my peers and just sharing experiences and understanding that I'm not alone in whatever space I'm in. And then just back to the CEO that you were talking about, that very often, very, very often, at least part of the issue is sitting with the leader. And the leader may or may not, Johari window, how much are they willing to be accountable for, and how much not. But I think as an OD consultant, we have to be incredibly courageous, as you have been, Craig, in your last 2 accounts, where you can go in and say what you think is the issue is not the issue, or it is part of the issue, but there's a huge part of that, you personally can change, Mr. CEO or Ms. CEO. I'm not sure if I'm making sense, Craig. So just trying to build on everything that's been said today, I think WorldsView needs to really clarify your strategy. What is it that you want to achieve? Are you a learning institution and that's it? Or are you a transformational consulting organization that part of which what you're doing is through learning interventions? Because that for me would make a huge difference to where you're going and how you're going to get there. I think you've got fabulous foundations. You have an amazing partner network. And I would just like to reiterate what Linda Roos says. We're available. Just ask us. You know, totally happy to help in any way that I can. You know, as I get older, I'm very aware that not everything that is in my head is relevant anymore. But whatever is there, you're welcome to tap into. So, Donna, over to you.
Thanks, Lee. Yeah, I guess in terms of comments that could be generalized, I think it's really interesting to look from a strategic point of view at COVID, and certain assumptions have been challenged, but equally there are affordances, there are things that we understand to be possible now that weren't in the past. And I think your business model has always been not only relevant, but arguably ahead of its time. I'm not sure that the absolute fundamentals that we doodled on pieces of paper necessarily need to change, but a lot in the context has changed. And so from my point of view, for instance, one of the things we observe is that where budgets are allocated has changed. And so as much as we might be frustrated to people coming to look for a quick fix for a predefined problem, that's also an indicator of where the organization has at least been able to allocate some kind of budget. And so it's an interesting intervention to come in. We're often in the privileged position, I guess, of coming in after the quick fix to try and help people understand what happened with the quick fix or why the data on that report is the way it is. One example is a shallow 360 is done, and the leader's been dinged on some results, but he or she really doesn't understand how to interpret that. So partly that's something we've managed to maneuver ourselves into, but I do agree certainly with Sherry in terms of where you think your natural brilliance, and in a small company that's both as individuals, but also, you know, I used to say when I worked there that WorldsView was somewhere between 12 and 500 people, depending on how you counted. And I think that seems to be a theme on various levels in this call. Certainly seems to me that the network consultancy model that was quite cutting edge when we were doing WorldsView is now far more comprehensively used around the world, and that might be interesting to lean into, as well as the digital world gives us interesting ways to get interesting people involved that doesn't require as much investment from them, to be frank. So remain open-minded to the possibility of the fact that sitting on my patio couch doing a 1-hour Zoom call is very different level of investment from me than any of the ways you might have asked people to participate in the past even. So we certainly are finding, for instance, virtual ways of collaborating enable us to give more discounts to people who can't afford our programs, enable us to bring experts in that in the past it would have been an international airfare and a couple of nights hotel room. And now it's just make yourself a fresh coffee and turn on your Zoom. So think about the brave new world, not only as a challenge, I think, but in terms of the possibilities and the ways that the general public's adjustment has been. Our clients all have had to learn to live with technology in order to get through COVID. They're way more tech savvy than they were before this all happened, for instance. So just ideas to play with around not only what's changed in terms of how people and organizations tend to spend their budgets, but also ways in which people relate and engage today that maybe they weren't so comfortable with 10 years ago.
Well, you know, for those of you who've stayed, you were here on this call. We used to say that those who are there are the right people. Who did that come from?
It's Peter Block.
Peter Block, wasn't it?
I think so.
So for those who aren't intimately tied into our business, thank you for staying. And by intimately, I mean long-term partners and long-term friends and colleagues. I have takeaways from this that start with we're not alone. And I think for Liesel and Mbali particularly, who have been the metaphor we're using inside the business, they've been under the bridge, living in a shack for a while as they've come out of COVID, fighting for survival. This is an important message. What is our game? I'm playing with this idea that all transformational consulting is learning in some way. And I'm trying to anchor myself in that, otherwise it gets too big. So there are things that I know, like I breathe water, which is the transformational consulting piece, but the learning design, the contemporary learning design, I'm registered on an 8-week program at UCT, one of their Get Smarter things on modern learning design. And I'm now fairly fluent in decolonial pedagogies and getting the basics right. So I think the next time you hear from us in this sort of format, we might be telling you where we're going as a group, but individually, I'm just so grateful that you made me welcome in coming back, that you're there to help, that you're doing the work that you are doing, which I know is an exemplar of the work that we want to be a part of, you know, making the world in some way a better place. Any closing thoughts from any of you as we set off? Who wants to say goodbye or leave a last thought? You know you want to. If you had a last thought, what would it be?
Craig, I'm absolutely thrilled you're back. And I must echo what Louise said. I'm absolutely thrilled you're back. When I saw your name on the invite, I signed up without hesitation. I think you've still got an amazing amount of work to do, and yeah, so happy to be there in any shape or form to contribute. I began my career in OD because of you, and yeah, I've learned a lot along the way while you've been gone. So yeah, I'm very happy to share, and yeah, welcome back.
Yeah, I think I'd like to share just almost as a general for everyone's thought that I'm quoting Dave Snowden, who I have the privilege of working with at the moment. The present is thicker than we think it is. We tend to over-focus on the past and the future, and that's quite a good way to get yourself into a state of anxiety. But actually, the moment, and he loves to quote Disney's Frozen just to subvert people, I think, because it makes senior executives laugh, but do the next right thing. There's some pragmatism in understanding where you are and what you have in your backpack right now, even if you're lost in the woods. The important thing to do is not panic, perhaps not even run towards what you think the destination is, but to take a few deep breaths and connect to where you are right now and understand that there are way more possibilities where we are right now than might immediately appear. And that in fact, one day, I mean, as I get older and grayer, I believe this more and more, but one day you'll look back at this moment and see all the potential that perhaps is not so easy to see right now, and challenge yourselves to kind of stay in the present and figure out who you are and perhaps where you are before you rush to what you should do, if that's possible. And that can be a matter of days if you take deep enough breaths rather than months or years.
Gosh, Donna, that's incredibly profound wisdom. I don't know that I can follow that in any way, Craig, other than to just send you metaphorical hugs, and the same to the WorldsView team, and say that I'm here for you, and any way that I can, would love to help and support you.
Well, folks, I know this has felt like it's a huge welcome home gift to me and to the WorldsView team. I hope that each of you in some way has found something that you take back with you, though, that's something that was said or some thought that you have works where you are now. Thank you for the time today. Thank you again, Liesl and Mbali and Richard for welcoming me back. And I love you all. Let's make the world somehow better and healthier place.